Okay, welcome to the Lovecraft Easing podcast. Our guest today is Ai Jiang. I'm saying that right, right?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, Sorry, I have an old man's memory. And so thanks for being on the show today. You wrote a book called Ling Hoon. I don't remember how I came upon it, but I emailed you a while back and told you I really loved the book and asked if I could have you on the show. So um, it comes out on April the 4th. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Um, and you've got another book that's already out called Small Tales,
Yes.
and that's short stories.
Mhm.
So um, I'll have a link to both of those in the show notes for everybody, so you guys don't have to Google all that.
But that's
Look
small
in
tails
notes.
with an O.
Yes,
Yes.
SMOL. Exactly. Thank you, Pete. So anyway, let's
Small.
small. Let's do introductions and then talk to I and go from there. So I'm Mike Davis, Lovecraft Easing, chief cook and bottle washer. Yes, I got a haircut. And yes, Bridget got a haircut, but I only noticed today. So Bridget, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I am Bridget. I do music and art things, horror sci-fi fan.
Pete.
I'm Pete Rollick. I pretend to write short stories and novels. I pretend to read books, and I pretend to write book reviews.
For
And we
pretending I
pretend to
have an
care.
awful lot of your books.
You actually do all those things though.
Yeah, but not really well.
That's okay, Pete. We pretend to like them, so it's good.
See, we're all lying to each other here.
I like your books. Maybe Matt has no
Oh, no, the
taste.
Miskatonic Spiritualism Club was so much fun.
Well, yeah, that's the one I'm going to hang my hat on.
All right.
Well, that and the reference book that we published.
Oh yeah, that the Derelith timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What did we title that again?
the lurking chronology,
Yeah.
something like that.
So for those of you interested in Derleth, it's available in print and Kindle. The Lurking Chronology by Pete Rollick, and very comprehensive and helpful. So you get the Kindle edition. You can
I was really going to,
searchable.
trying to do that half-assed and like not helpful at all, but
You failed.
Fail.
I failed completely.
Yeah, you
So
failed.
again, pretending to do my job.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Matt.
Hi there. I'm Matt Carpenter. I run the Lovecraft Easy Movie Night, and last night we enjoyed Noracebo, another
Nasibo.
recommendation of Aja Bulkin. We have a prize today associated with the podcast if you want to win.
Ooh.
It is a comic book adaptation of the music of Erich Zahn. It is currently Nick O'Gorman is adapting a lot of Lovecraft. He's got a Kickstarter going now for all four of his books in a compilation. But if you want to win this comic book, all you have to do is send an email to easingprizes@gmail.com and put Zahn in the subject line. We draw a winner in about 6 weeks. So if you're listening to this, say a month from now, go ahead and enter. You never know. We probably won't have drawn a winner yet.
Yeah. You look excited about it, I.
I'm always excited about books.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself, because I all I know about you right now is that I love everything I've read of yours so far. So, how long have you been writing? Let's start there.
Um, that is a difficult timeline to try to explain, but I think, yeah. So I've been writing, I would say, for a while, on and off, but it was always casual writing, so for my own joy. So I did like some romance in high school, some supernatural stuff in middle school, and then I stopped writing completely all through university because my parents were like, what is this writing thing? You should focus on school,
Right.
as parents do. So then I didn't pick writing back up until COVID hit. So, and yeah, and then I really started focusing on craft and whatnot, late 2020. And it was then where I started writing horror without knowing I wrote horror. And I think it was because of COVID and being in such like a claustrophobic space. And I was doing a lot of ghost writing for like full time at that time. And the hours were like way out of whack for me. And I just started like hallucinating things. And I think that's what a lot like went into my writing too, like all the stress, the pressure, things like that. But yeah, so late 2020 approximately.
Yeah, that's not the first time I've heard that from a guest about writing horror without realizing it. I think it was Emma Gibbon, guys, who said that. Um, if I remember correctly, she's gonna kill me if I get this wrong, but I think it was Emma, and her husband's like, "Yeah, you write horror," and she's like, "I do." Have you been reading horror all your life, or
So I wouldn't say I've been reading horror all my life because I was first introduced to like the written works in horror in university when I took a course in fantasy and horror, actually. So I actually took the course for fantasy, but was introduced to horror through that course. And I was like, whoa, this stuff is so cool. Why have I never read this before? Because when I was a kid, a lot of the YA stuff that people talked about were like, very vampire themed, right? Like vampire romance.
right?
And like, yeah. And like the supernatural stuff with like kids with superpowers and things like that. So I never read much horror until university. Yeah.
Or what did you start reading after that?
Sorry.
What books did you start reading after that?
I read like a really broad range of SFFH in university and like a lot of the classics because that's like what I studied, right?
Yeah.
So it was like a blend of very like old time works and then like newer works in science fiction and fantasy like Ted Chiang, Ursula Le Guin, Shirley Jackson. But in that course, we weren't introduced to a lot of contemporary writers, except there was one, I hope I'm saying the name right. I think it was Helen Oyeyemi. I want to say that was the name.
That does not ring a bell. I'll have to look her up.
Let me see. I remember the name of the book. It was White is for Witching.
Okay.
Yeah. But that was one of the more contemporary books we had read. And yeah. But other than that, we read a lot of old work like Dracula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about Ling Hoon, because this is a ghost story, but it's quite different from any ghost story I've read. What was the genesis of that? How did you come up with the idea for this particular book, and why did you want to write this particular story?
I think I was thinking a lot about like the different haunted house stories and the ghost stories I've read, and it was all that like the house was like an evil entity or the ghosts are very evil. So I was thinking, what if like the ghosts are benevolent and not evil? And who was evil are like the people who kind of conjured them, right? So
Right.
then that's how the thing came about. And I was thinking a lot about death and the way death works. And I was thinking
You broke up for a second there.
it's really that death haunts us. Hear me?
Now I can, but I didn't hear what you just said. You were buffering.
So sorry.
Oh, no
I
problem.
think my internet is great. It's a weekend thing. I don't know why. So where did I get broken off from?
um, I basically right at the beginning, I said it was a different kind of ghost story, and
No.
yeah.
Okay.
So if you
Um,
said something brilliant that you can't remember,
no, it's just whenever I try to repeat myself, I try to like repeat exactly what I said, and then it just sounds like a really watered down version of what I said the first time.
yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Anyway, okay, I will endeavor to try my best. to say it again. But I was thinking a lot about haunted houses and the ghosts that haunt them, and how a lot of the times they're portrayed as very like maleficent like entities, right? Like evil entities that kind of haunt us. And I was
Right.
thinking about what it would be like if all the ghosts were like benevolent and like the haunted houses were seen as a good thing and not a bad thing. Um, and I was thinking about how like we always think that death is what haunts us, but then I thought about what if we were actually the ones haunting death, because we are the living people who are kind of like holding on to death and like the loved ones that pass, right? And I talk a little more about this in like the back matter of my book, but I was thinking a lot about my uncle's death at the time when I was writing it. And at that time, my mom was kind of just like floating everywhere, not really in it because she was thinking so much about my uncle. Um, and I was just thinking about the fact that she kind of like is stalled in time in the way that she's thinking about my uncle's death and not really living, if that makes sense, even though she
Yeah.
is the one living. Um, Whereas like everything else and like everyone else around her has been moving on. So I wanted to kind of like explore that stalledness of when we are grieving and when we lost someone and we're like desperately trying to get them back. So death, I mean not death. So home in Linghun is like a manifestation of that, like desperate attempts to like clutch onto something we have lost at a time that seems to be escaping us.
It strikes me also that different cultures mourn death differently and handle death differently. You know, in the United States, it seems to me that you're not really expected, or maybe not allowed, to mourn for very long. Whereas in some other cultures, um, sometimes there's a you know, when you mourn someone for a definite period of time, so you're
Mm-hmm.
allowed to get that out of you. And it strikes me that if you're not allowed to do that, or give yourself permission to do that for that amount of time, then you can definitely find yourself in a position where you're trying to hold on to that person forever, as with what you were talking about with your mother, I think you said, and
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of the characters, the people in your novel. So, um, so yeah. Um, what there's something there are three main characters in the book.
Mm-hmm.
One's called Miss. We just know her as Mrs. Um, the other one is Winqui. Is that how you would say?
Winty.
What's that?
Winty.
Okay. And the other one is Liam.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed something. Each character is written in a different person. Um, Mrs. is written in the second person. Wiki, is that how you say it? I'm sorry. I'm
No,
half
no worries.
I'm half deaf.
Winty.
Um, is written in the first person, and then Liam is written in the third person. And you know, obviously that's deliberate, but I was wondering what your thought process was behind that, because I thought it was a very interesting thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when I think of doing different perspectives, I think of how it relates specifically to the characters. Okay, my internet is unstable. Can you still hear me?
Yes,
Okay. Just making sure so I don't go off and then have to redo it again.
no problem.
My worst fear. But
Yes, it sounds like your internet's being slow today, so no worries.
yeah. Um, yes. So when I was writing Winchi, I was thinking she is a very self-assured person. She knows what she wants and she knows who she is. So I thought first person would be the best for this.
She's a 14-year-old girl, for those who not read the book. So, go on.
Actually, I had intended for her to be about like right before graduation age. So like 17. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I got it.
Yeah.
Her name, her. I apologize. Her age isn't really mentioned, that I remember in the novella, but I just remember that I thought it had been about a decade since her brother died, and she said she was 4. So maybe apparently it was a little bit more than a decade. So she's about 17, and you wrote her in the first person because, as you were saying, she knows who she is and she's very self-assured.
Mm-hmm. And then when I was writing Liam, I had him to be kind of like a more indifferent and aloof character who has been staying in home for a long time. So he's like very indifferent to and to himself even. So
Yep.
I thought the third himself also has some
Oh,
difference.
there you did break up.
No.
That's okay. He's a very indifferent person. Oh, she's frozen. Her internet does not like us.
Can you hear me?
I can now. You were talking about Liam and how
Okay.
he's indifferent.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. I just connected to my data, so hopefully that will make things a little better.
Okay, great.
Okay. Yes. So saying how Liam is like more of a aloof and indifferent character because of how long he stayed at home, and it kind of like numbed him to both himself and to the outside world. So I wanted to use the third person to kind of show like this removedness from the world and from himself. But it's not like he doesn't know himself, like kind of misses, I'll talk about after.
Right.
But it's that like he feels so distant to everything that he's just kind of numb to it. So I thought the third person, even if it's like third person limited, which is a little closer, can show that distance.
You sound better, so I think this
Nice.
this is yeah. So good. And then Mrs. is in the second person.
So I absolutely love writing Mrs.'s section first, and they are definitely the ones that came very like a lot easier for me, I would say. And I feel like second person, especially in like very psychological horror, works very well because for Mrs., she's supposed to be someone who's like not very connected with her identity. She's like very confused about it, especially because after coming to Canada and her marriage and being so like dominated by someone else and like control, like who has been controlling her thoughts and her actions and what she thinks about herself.
Right.
So I thought the second person is the best way to show this because it's kind of like she's talking about herself, but it doesn't feel like herself. It's like she's talking to someone who she should be, but she is not, if that makes sense. And I've seen this perspective used a lot of the times in diasporic fiction about immigration, about not feeling like connected to yourself. And I thought like this kind of perspective works very well because you're always thinking about yourself not in the first person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, she was sort of made into a different person by her husband. She had to be who her parents needed her to be because they couldn't afford to keep her. And then she had to be who her husband made her to be. You know, he had all these rules apparently for her. You know, you dress a certain way, think a certain way, that sort of thing. Control freak, but yet he dies and she still misses him because it's one of the only things that she's known, in adulthood, I guess. So yeah, I thought that was. I mean, I knew that was deliberate, and yeah, you're a really good writer, especially for. Is that your first book?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you're a really good writer. Those are really intelligent choices, and I really like your reasons behind them. When she, I feel real sorry for her, because her parents obviously don't care about her at all. All they care about is her dead brother. So maybe we should back up a little bit and without spoilers, could you tell for those, because a lot of people haven't read this yet because it's not out till April 4th. Could you tell the audience what the book is about and about this special town that people try to move to and why?
Okay.
The name of the town is Home. So
I will try to do this very carefully. So basically, it is a town set in the outskirts of Toronto. And this town is like very removed from like the city itself, like how fast it's moving. So it's like a city, it's a town sold in time,
right.
where people go to buy haunted houses to live with the ghosts of their dead loved ones. Yeah.
They
I
want,
think that's a safe description.
yeah, it is, and they want the homes to become haunted because it's like a family who has lost someone, for example, her family, they move into a home uh, in the town of Home because they want the brother who died to come haunt them and to be with them. And unfortunately, like you said, they're stuck there and they're ignoring the very much alive daughter that they have, which is I found very sad. Uh, there's a couple of phrases that I highlighted from the book, and one of them is she's talking about her mother, and she says she never makes my favorite. She's talking about meals. She never remembers my birthday. An evil voice whispers to me, if there is to be only one child, it would not be you. And yeah, it's just stuck. It's mourning someone who's died and ignoring what's right in front of you, the good that you have. And yeah, it's impossible to say, for any of us to say, when is an appropriate time to let go or to stop mourning someone. There's no right or wrong way to do it, but you're right. Your book seemed to say to me, one of the things it said to me was that if you wander into not letting go and starting to ignore what you do have, then that's where you're starting to go wrong. And especially if you're hurting people in your life, your loved ones. So anyway, that's what I got from it, right or wrong. So it's a very beautiful book, a very haunting book. And so yeah, people should definitely read this. It's a novella, not a novel. So it's not a long read. So um did you guys have a chance to read this one yet? I know it was kind of tell us about the small tales.
So when I was putting that together, I was contemplating on whether I should put my most known works in one place for people to read, or if I should put all the works that did not get as much attention when I first started writing into a book. So obviously, I went for the latter because I was like, I feel like I wanted this first mini chapbook like collection, I guess. There's only like 8 stories, I believe, inside. To kind of showcase how far I've come as a writer and maybe give people an idea of how I was as a writer when I first began writing and how I am now, if that makes sense. Because if I put all of my best works, I feel like it's not necessarily representative of me as a writer, because obviously I do not always write amazing works. There's going to be ups and downs. But I think these early works really showcase like the direction I wanted to go as a writer, the ideas I wanted to explore, because they do touch upon things like death, immigration, identity, among like other social political things. Like one of the stories, I'm not sure if you read it, but it was a sci-fi, maybe the only sci-fi story in that collection, the one that was unpublished, and I like really struggled to place. But I really love the idea and the concept in general, and I just wanted to include that to kind of like show the concepts I would like to explore as a writer moving forward, but also as a writer when I first started, if that makes sense.
I have to say that that's a very brave choice to make with the collection. Instead of showcasing what you feel is your best work, to showcase your growth as a writer, as you said. That's a pretty brave choice to make. So that's great. What's next for you? What are you working on something now?
Too many things. Working always on too many things. But I think I'm a person who really likes to work in like broadly across all genres. So I find myself not just kind of like staying in horror or like sci-fi or fantasy. I kind of like jump back and forth in between. So in June, I have a cyberpunk novelette coming out called I Am I. And it's basically like talking about toxic productivity and like how jobs are being overdominated by AIs these days, things like that, and kind of like the pressures of needing to be efficient and productive and like basically inhuman levels of work that is expected from some people these days in the marketplace, right?
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah.
What is sleep? There's no such thing. But yeah, so I find myself swaying a lot towards my sci-fi works in progresses this year. I reckon the next year I'll probably go back into horror. And there's one that I've been planning that hopefully will be picked up eventually. But it's going to be about like the stresses of marriage, the traditions, the duties, especially on women in my culture, in like the very traditional sense. Of course, now it's like a lot better, but you can still see the underlying traditions and cultures and restrictions really coming through, especially in my older relatives compared to now. I'm actually like probably one of the most rebellious in my family, I would say, and that is how I'm here now and not, you know, elsewhere doing something else. But yeah, so I will have a horror novella, that's what I'm planning, that touches on that. But it will probably not happen until I write 2 more sci-fi novels. So yeah, so that's what I have planned so far.
Well, for those listening who've not looked at the spelling of your name, with AI dominating the conversation these days, yeah, it is kind of ironic. So, when does I Am I come out?
So it's coming out on June 20th, and I have not said this elsewhere. So this will be, I mean, not the release date, but I will have an event where I basically go against an AI for promotional purposes.
Oh,
So
nice.
yes, so the AI will get a prompt and I will get a prompt, but obviously the AI will write whatever it is immediately, and I will get 5 minutes because I am human, and we will compare and contrast it.
We don't know that. I mean, this could be an avatar, you know? All right. No, I'm kidding.
I mean,
you know
it
what?
will be live, so
What you said about the insane levels of productivity uh, demanded of a lot of workers. It goes back. That's something that I've thought a lot about in my life, and that I didn't. No judgments on anyone else, but I don't fit, and I'm a square peg in a round hole. You know, I don't fit into that. I can't work. Even before I got sick, I could never, had a hard time working a regular job. You know, like I've done all kinds of things, like um, assembly line work, um, data entry, and all I could think of was, oh my God, am I going to do this the rest of my life? Get up every morning and do this? You know, I just couldn't face it. One of my favorite quotes from Walden, I just picked it up. I just pulled it up. when you were talking about the productivity levels. In Walden, he writes, I love a broad margin to my life. And then he talks about sometimes just standing and staring out into space for hours at a time until the noise of a traveler's wagon on the distant highway, I was reminded of the lapse of time. And here's the quote that I really like. I grew in those seasons like corn in the night, and they were far better than any work of the hands would have been. They were not time subtracted from my life, but so much over and above my usual allowance. And we live in a society where it's kind of almost shameful to say that you don't lead a busy life, or that you're not busy. You know what I mean? So I'm really looking forward to reading that. Because I've thought a lot about that, and I'm really looking forward to reading what you have to say about that. When is that event going to happen, and where?
Let me look at my calendar.
Oh, no problem.
It's been a wild mess, I must say, lately. So it is planned for April 29th at 3 p.m. EST.
3 p.m. Eastern.
Yes. And I'm not sure if you guys know Angela Yuriko Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she is going to be hosting that. So we're going to have it live on her YouTube channel, which will be very fun. I'm very excited.
Yeah, that's a pretty good, cool idea. So I'll be there. I'll be watching. So
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say on what you said about like being ashamed to say that you're not leading a busy life or things like that, right? It just reminded me of how I had to go to the dentist yesterday. So I was like working up until around 5 a.m.-ish, and I had to get to the dentist around 10 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So I got there, and then of course the dentist like, oh, how are you? Things like that, general small talk. And I was like exhausted, utterly exhausted. And she was like, oh, why? And then she like paused and thought about it for a moment. And in my mind, I was gonna think like, is she gonna ask me if I went clubbing, or like I don't party or anything? But she's like, anyways, I sit down and she's like, oh, is it because of work? And I was like, yes. And then I was thinking about the fact that if I did go partying or like anything like that, for fun, would I have said that, or would I have just agreed that it was work because she said it and it's kind of like almost expected?
Yeah.
In a way, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
it does.
Yeah, and the whole time she was cleaning my teeth, I was just thinking about that. But yeah.
A lot of life, so much of life is about balance. We want to set goals and accomplish things that are important to us, whether it's writing books or doing a podcast or anything creative, or any kind of goals. We want to do that, but it can become our enemy as well. Thought of another quote. Einstein wrote this on a napkin to someone, and it had actually recently sold. The napkin sold for like over $1 million. The person asked him to write down something about happiness, because he's talking to Albert Einstein. And Einstein wrote something that I really love. A calm and modest life brings more happiness than the pursuit of success combined with constant restlessness. And it's notable that he didn't say the pursuit of success. He said the pursuit of success combined with constant restlessness. And so yeah. Anyway, I'm going on, but it's just something that I've thought about a lot. So I'm really looking forward to reading your book. So.
But Mike, it's inherent in this very podcast. Is like we always ask the writer, oh, you've written this great book, you've written this collection of short stories,
right?
It's critically acclaimed. What are you going to do next?
Yeah, but I will say that if a writer said to me, oh, I'm going to take a year off and then I'm going to write another book, I'd be like, cool. You know,
Yeah, it's like I can see you like interviewing Harper Lee. It's like, Harper Lee, what, Kill a Mockingbird. What are you gonna do next?
yeah, you've written
Next
something
60
brilliant.
years off.
Hey, I have a lot of admiration for someone that says, you know what, I got one book in me, I think it's brilliant, and then I'm done. It's just everybody's different, right? So you be you, Pete.
Yeah,
Well,
but
look,
our friend Joe used to talk about like people have different reasons for writing,
Mm,
and some of us just have to tell stories,
right.
and it's often the people in our lives who don't understand that there's all this stuff going on in our heads that they don't ever get to hear because we don't show it to people, but then we put it down on the page, and then like people are like you're a writer, you tell stories, and it's sort of there's all these different motivations, but most of it is just I have things going on in my head and I have to get them out.
Which translates to I'm doing this because I want to do it, because I love doing it, not
And I
because
have
I
yeah,
feel like I have to be busy.
right. And if I happen to make a little buck out of it, that's
That's
fine.
even better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Circling back, before we finish talking, circling back to uh, your novella Ling Hoon. Um, Again, I'll have a link to that in the show notes for people they can pre-order that. I noticed on the publisher's website. Um, can they pre-order the Kindle yet? Do you know, or just the print?
I believe you can pre-order the Kindle now across like the Amazons worldwide. I know for some countries, no, yeah. I think you can order it
Is it on
worldwide on Kindle now
is
on
it on
Amazon.
Amazon now?
Yeah, I
Okay.
do believe so. I was thinking about the print because I know for some countries it's available now on Amazon, and for some like Germany or Chinese Amazon, like it's not popping up for some reason. Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't see it, but I might
Let
just
me
be
see.
Googling incorrectly.
Let me see if I can pull it up and drop it in our chat. Because I know sometimes when the people search it up themselves, they can't find it for some reason. But then when I search it up, I can see it. So let me see. Yeah, so it's popping up for me. I dropped it in the chat. You can
Yeah,
see if
and
you're able to see it now.
I've got a link to Dark Matter Magazine
Mm-hmm.
dot shop. Um, I see that you can buy the print for $14.99 and you can pre-order it. I don't see
The Kindle. Interesting, because
I
I
don't see
see
the Kindle
the
on there yet.
yeah, because I see the Kindle version on my computer.
On the Dark Matter shop,
No,
Matter
sorry, on
Magazine.
Amazon. Yeah,
Okay. Oh, okay. You dropped that link as well. Okay, I'll
yeah.
include that link. Great. There it is. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No,
So that's the link I'll include in the show notes so that people can pre-order the Kindle as well. Um, that's a great price, $5.99, and then it'll drop into your Kindle on April 4th. I always say this, but it really is important. Um, if you think, hey, I'm going to buy this book, the pre-orders really help authors and publishers. Um, so just go ahead and pre-order it now, and that'll really help them know what kind of demand they're going to get for a book, for example. So, I guess circling back to Ling Hun, what are your thoughts on ghosts and the afterlife and all that in reality? Do you believe in an afterlife?
so I think it's very interesting because, especially in my family, and I would say like broader culture too, ghosts, like talking about ghosts and death and things like that, is rather a taboo topic, if that makes sense. And I would
Yes.
say it's because like superstitions would say they are real, but not necessarily everyone would believe in them, right? I would
Right.
say like my older relatives, like my grandparents, they believe that ghosts, spirits, ancestral spirits exist. But I feel like for me personally, I do and I don't. I'm not quite sure how to explain it. It's like sometimes I feel like there are spirits and presence around, and other times I feel like, oh no, they don't exist. They're in like a realm somewhere else. Um, yeah, it's a very difficult question to answer, I think.
I do think that we forget a lot of the time that it's okay to say, in your case, what you're basically saying is, I don't know. Sometimes I think so, sometimes I don't. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Mhm.
And it's okay to say about a lot of things, hey, you know what, I don't know. Well, I've got an open mind to it. So, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly.
Yes. I do think I am a superstitious person in general, though, like believe in fate, that like the universe has some kind of plan for me or things like that, I would say, or like things happen for a reason.
Right.
For example, I always find that weird, small, bad luck things happen to me before something really good happens. So I'm like always on the lookout, like, what is it? What is going to happen if, like, I drop a cup or like a plate breaks in half in my hand, which has happened before. And I like literally didn't do anything to the plate. It just broke in half in my hand. I was like, I must be like close to winning a lottery or something like that. But yeah, which is funny because some people believe the opposite, right? Like a mirror breaks or, walk under a ladder, things like small things like that. And then they think, oh, yeah, I'm going to get bad luck. But for me, it's opposite. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to get good luck.
That's interesting. For my wife, she's kind of superstitious about bad things happening in threes.
Oh.
So she'll be like, a few bad things happen. And she's like, well, hopefully that's the third one. And then things are good now. She'll say things like that. It's really interesting, how different cultures approach the afterlife question and ghosts and spirits. Anyway, I really loved your take on it in Ling Hoon. I don't know. It made me think of a couple of other, a book I've read several times that I really love, and a movie that I watched recently. The movie was The Long Walk. Matt, I think you can describe that better than I can. Really interesting movie.
It's first of all, it's a movie from Laos, and it's in Laotian, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And it involves Laotian mysticism, which is not familiar to those of us in the West, but it's about a man who meets a ghost and then thinks it's his duty to try to help people die better, more comfortably. And you could argue it turns him into not the nicest person in the world, but then things go haywire and he tries to use the ghost to go back in time to fix some of his mistakes, and things keep getting worse. And it ends up circling back on itself in this ingenious way, to the point where, like, I ended up thinking the one ghost was not a benevolent figure at all, but she wanted revenge for what had happened to her. You could interpret it though she was trying to be helpful to a person, but it was really brilliantly scripted, I thought. Very few sets, hardly any special effects, just super well done.
You could argue, like you said, that
what was that African movie that we saw?
That doesn't ring a bell.
It was from Senegal, was it? Remember what I'm talking about?
I may not have
I
seen
remember, but I can't think of the name either.
It was another similar, involving a different sort of mysticism than we're comfortable with, and how that plays into a redemption arc or not. So there's some very interesting movies with this approach to ghosts or spirits that we are just not familiar with.
Right, and that's my point, the different perspectives than just the Western perspective. You know, you're a Chinese Canadian author, and your perspective is going to be different, perhaps, than mine. Matt, you could argue in The Long Walk that the protagonist is actually the villain of the story. It just really, there's several different ways that you can look at this movie. Anyway, I wanted to mention it
The other
to
movie
you.
was Mike. It was Saloon.
Oh yeah.
I didn't see that one.
It's very interesting to read these books about Canadian mythology. It's so different than American.
Yeah, she's Chinese Canadian.
No, Canadian.
Whatever, ignore him. How do you spell Sloom?
Saloum.
Okay. Anyway, I wanted to mention those to you. And also a book that I've read and reread for years called The Night Country by Stuart Onan. And it's pure New England, a ghost story. And it's the first chapter especially is just dripping with autumn, you could say. And it's about a year ago on Halloween, these teenagers were, these 17-year-olds were driving too fast, and one survived. One's got brain damage. Another one that survived has brain damage. Another one survived with, just no with scratches and cuts, and that's about it. And then the three other teenagers died. So a year later on Halloween, the three teenagers that died, they haunt the living on that day. And it's just a really interesting story. It has absolutely nothing to do with what you're saying in Ling Hoon, but it's just a different perspective on ghosts, which as I was reading Ling Hoon, I was thinking of The Long Walk, and I was thinking of The Night Country. So anyway.
I will have to search those up. I'm
yeah,
very excited.
Yeah, if you do, shoot me an email and let me know what you think. So, yeah. Anything else, guys? I think that's it. April 29th at 3 p.m. Eastern. Maybe when you get a second afterwards, if you wouldn't mind, will you shoot me a link to her YouTube channel? And then I'll include her YouTube channel in the show notes too for the April 29th event.
Sounds good.
That'll be really interesting. You versus AI.
Yeah, I versus I.
Yeah, I versus
Who will
I.
win?
I don't know. I think I read an article about that the best way to look at AI is not a replacement for creative endeavors, but as something that can handle the grunt work. For example, maybe answering an email that doesn't require a personal response, so that you can concentrate on the really creative things. But that's one example. So I fed we've got across the street from the apartment complex where I live, we've got used to be a sort of juvenile boys home, I think, a couple decades ago.
A prison.
Yeah, pretty much. And now all those buildings are just sitting there empty, beyond this fence. And it's kind of creepy walking past it at night, like when I go walk my dog or something. And I fed in a couple of photos and a couple of, just very short prompts about it into an AI, and it wrote this little like 3-paragraph thing about how it feels walking past it at night, and how sometimes it feels like that there are eyes beyond the windows watching them, that sort of thing. I'm like, well, that's not too bad. pretty good little story. So, but I sent it to my friend Kelly and told him that I wrote it, and he goes, "That sucks." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I didn't really write it, but yeah, I did." So, anyway, thank you for being here today.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the book, and I'm enjoying the short story collection, and I'm really looking forward to reading the I Am I. So, are you going to stick around with us, or are you going to duck out? Either way is fine.
I can stay for another half an hour, I would say.
Okay.
Maybe not the full hour mark. Yeah, we have some guests over that need to be entertained, and I kind of just like left.
Well, whenever you need to go, that's totally fine. So
wait, we're allowed to leave if we have guests?
Shh, they've been here for like 2 days. It's okay. Don't worry about it. They come like weekly. No, so it's like,
this is how she gets away from the guests.
I'm just trying to figure out
the little break
here.
No, I thought you did this to get away from your guests, Pete.
Well, okay. I'm still hungover from last night.
You young people. I don't know how you do it.
Imaginary guests again.
Yeah.
Imaginary guest had to help you finish a case, right?
No, so we made sangria last night, and then somebody brought over rum punch.
Oh boy.
And, Jesus.
And apparently those two are two great tastes that go great together.
I mean, that sounds kind of like a hurricane.
Yeah. Yeah. The dog is very annoyed because he was up late last night, and he didn't drink anything, but now he's like,
well, nobody is making him stay up just because you're up.
Oh yeah, he won't go to bed without us.
Wow.
Aw.
So,
Laurel Hightower's book is out, just as a reminder. It's called Every Woman Knows This, a horror collection. So check that out. You can now pre-order The Strange by Nathan Ballingred. We're going to have him on in a month or two to talk about the book.
I saw him signing stuff. That's
Sorry?
I saw pictures of him signing stuff.
Hopefully it was the book.
Well, yeah.
So I do want to announce that there are a couple of art books that are coming out or are out that you may be interested in.
Can I talk about Nathan's book first?
What?
Can I talk about Nathan's book first real quick?
Oh, God.
No.
1931, New Galveston, Mars. 14-year-old Annabelle Crisp sets off through the wastelands of the strange to find Silas Munt's gang, who have stolen her mother's voice, destroyed her father, and left her solely with a need for vengeance. I don't understand any of that, which is what is exciting to me. So I can't wait to read this. Anyway, go ahead, Matt.
Okay, so these are artists who have been around for decades, doing covers and interior art in Mythos kind of publications. So David Carson, we mentioned, I think, a few weeks ago, a book of his portfolios had come out in hardcover, available on Amazon. Well, there are two other accompanying books of other art that he has. If you can look in the pictures or search online for his art, that'll give you an idea whether you want to pick up any of these volumes. But there's Centipede Press has been doing intermittent, sort of like handheld pocket art portfolios. And there's another artist that we all know about, Alan Kozlowski. He is just having his art treated in the same way. The reason I mention it is I don't even know if it's up for sale yet, but it's going up in the next week or so. And once they go out on the secondary market, the price just whoosh goes way up. It's because all these Centipede Breast books are good. So it might seem like a little bit of an outlay, but if you collect art, this is a good way to get a more comprehensive look at these two artists. So just think, if that's your thing, you ought to check it out. You can get the Carson books on Amazon, but the Kozlowski book is strictly going to be on Centipede Press, but I'm not sure when.
If you are a Lovecraft Easy Patreon, I have something coming up for various levels. The $10 and up level, John Paget gave me recordings of the new Thomas Ligotti book, and he said I could share a couple of the stories with the Patreons.
Super
So
cool.
yeah, so that's coming up, and he's a great audio reader and friend of Tom's. If you're $5 and up, which is the basic, we are the panelists and I have decided that once a month or so we are going to do, wait for it, a kind of Mystery Science Theater 3000 commentary on a movie. And I was told by my panelists that the first movie would be Cocaine Bear. So, which is obviously high art, and that's why we want to make fun of it. So,
It's high something.
yeah.
The bear was high.
Yeah, the bear was high. Pete, you'll be happy to know that Cocaine Shark is coming soon.
Yeah, no, it's
There's
still
there's already a trailer.
yeah, no. My take on this is called Meth Amphibian.
Yes. That's what I'm waiting to see.
I'm waiting for Meth Amphibian, and that will be the one to rule them all.
All right. So, look, we got those two things coming. So, some of you told me that you could do it next Wednesday, and some of you told me that you can't.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Wednesday following. So I'll email you guys. We'll probably do the Wednesday, record it the Wednesday after that, hopefully. So
yeah, we're spending the next 3 nights, well, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night at the House of Mouse. So,
all right. Well, if that's more important, going to Disneyland.
it's spring break, and that's what we do in Florida.
Oh, there won't be anybody there. It's a good time to go.
Well, that's why we're going at night as opposed to day.
That's when all the college kids go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
when's the best time to go if you're a misanthrope?
never.
Never.
Yeah. Our spring break just finished here.
Yeah, we know. A lot of people's have that. Ours is a little different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Floridians. Yeah. My kid has spring break this coming week, and then Mike has their spring break here in a few weeks, actually. So,
all right. So
it's all over the place.
Pete and I have a topic. I'm going to play a trailer. Did you guys see the first Flash trailer? The Flash? Nobody saw the first Flash trailer.
I saw the first Flash trailer.
Jeez.
Play it again.
Why don't you turn in your nerd card? No, the second trailer is actually better. And Pete and I want to talk about timelines versus parallel worlds. So, yeah. So what I said to DeBronzo about this was that Barry Allen is a dork that should not have this much power. But then I watched the second trailer, and I'm like, but you kind of got to feel sorry for the kid. He screws up the whole fucking universe, but it's because he wants to save his mom. So all right, so he goes. This is a pertinent conversation because of the movie. That's how we're framing this. He goes, you can go anywhere, any timeline, any universe. So what is the difference, Pete? And is there a difference between an alternate timeline and an alternate universe?
So I think where we see a really good example of that is in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, when he's falling through different timelines / universes, And at one point, there's like a whole universe of just paint, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's not an alternate timeline.
Right.
That's a whole different universe. And then they finally end up crashing into something that's an alternate timeline. So I think that's a good example. An alternate universe in my head is somewhere where the laws of physics, what we would consider normal, or go out the window.
It doesn't have to be, though. An alternate universe could be where, say, the laws of physics are the same, but life on Earth evolved a little bit differently.
I don't see how you would separate that from just see that to me, that's just a different timeline.
What if nobody changed? What if it was that way from the beginning, though, is what I'm saying.
But you're okay, so you're taking a very anthropocentric view of the timeline. Where is the beginning? So if you say,
I'm actually doing the opposite. I'm saying, what if no humans were involved, but just there was a multiverse from the beginning where different things happened in different parallel universes? Doesn't even have to be Earth.
I'm not sure I'm catching your drift, but
well, what about, did you read the Amber series?
Yeah. Love
okay, so what I view it as like the alternate universe is all those things that are just they've got their own timelines, but some of them are very close to us and some are not.
Yeah, that's very true, and they're all shadows of Amber,
right?
Which is the real world, quote unquote.
So if time is defined by the literal orbit of a planet, I mean, that is essentially how we define time.
No.
No, you would
that's
disagree.
That's how we define.
Well, that's what I said, how we define time.
Right.
So if you're saying if it's an alternate timeline, then it's automatically being related to us because we're the ones that hold the whole concept of a timeline in our heads.
Yeah, sure.
Well, just because we define time that way doesn't mean that it's correct, right?
No, of course not. I'm not implying that, but I'm just saying, like, I can see where Pete is saying a different universe follows different rules.
I don't agree with Pete.
To be an alternate universe, which implies that it wouldn't necessarily even have a timeline because a timeline concept is provided by people who believe in time or provide the concept of time.
And so let's say that somewhere a certain distance away from our planet, our solar system, nothing that happens interior to that at that point can be noticed outside of our solar system. At some point, everything just becomes a smudge.
We're boring, Matt. But
it's the smoogiverse.
It's right. But so nothing that happens in that bubble affects the rest of the universe.
This is really getting into hardcore science fiction kind of stuff because Charlie Strauss tried to deal with that in some of his science fiction where, like, if you were outside the reach of the light waves of an event, you never knew it happened.
Right. So it has no impact on you whatsoever. So therefore,
like a couple of trillion years in the future when it's like all just waved out.
Right. So anything that happened in that smudge, and whether it's a smudge because of space or time, it has little impact on you or anything else. So is that bubble of space-time really impacting the rest of the universe?
No.
And the answer is no. So what you could imagine our universe being is a whole bunch of bubbles of space-time. And only when something in one bubble interacts with something in another bubble do those bubbles become linked. And I need I have to have a lot more alcohol before we
I'm thinking about now like a vision of a whole bunch of bubbles, like a dish soap, and then they just kind of boop,
right. Yes,
boop,
you
In the
got it.
quantum
or
foam.
boop. Yeah.
Right. And
That
sometimes
was a visual description for those listening later.
so there's
Bloop.
two bubbles sitting next to each other and they don't really have any interaction, and then all of a sudden they're one bubble because something from one bubble moved into the other bubble. Now they're interacting their space-time. But then sometimes I've seen it, some bubbles split again.
You've seen it?
I've seen it. I have seen bubbles
On the
split.
molecular level on his weekends.
Yes.
He just bloops into the alternate universe and sees it.
So
Right.
listen, Mike, you said you wanted to
I was
talk
thinking if he
about
was
this.
going to give us like a finale from Blade Runner kind of speech in the pouring rain, like iguanas raining down on him. I have seen
Yeah.
time to die.
Attack ships off the arm of Orion.
Time to
Yes.
die. All right. Okay. So Star Trek 2009.
All right. So first of all, again, all right. So we sort of envision this timeline of things, and then we have this, this event happens, and then this universe branches off, and then this happens, and this universe branches off.
Right. That's
And-
what I'm asking. Yeah.
Well, that's
Right.
the Loki
Yes.
rule.
Yes. Right. Except that always just assumes that one branch is the right branch, and that's the branch you're in. But if you're, say, in the mirror universe of Star Trek, then and you're looking back at the timeline, you're saying, "Oh, this is where those dumb fuckers broke off."
Yes.
And
I'm with you on that.
and became peaceful. It's all a matter of perspective. Not that.
Yeah, it is. In the Star Trek movie, when they're talking about, Spock is talking about to the crew that 25 years ago, our lives, something happened and our lives are different than what they would have been because of this event. And I think it's
And it's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he goes, and I think it's Uhura says, an alternate reality. Is it an alternate reality, or is it an alternate timeline, or are they both the same thing? I think that's my question.
I think we're spinning semantics.
Yeah.
At that point.
Now, so
It's
does
just wrong. Because Spock's mom dies, it's just wrong.
That's right. Does the original Star Trek timeline still exist in this scenario?
Yes.
Well, if we're going with the Loki rule, yeah, sure. Somewhere out there.
It exists because I want it to exist.
Well, okay, so I have the question. Yes, it exists because Picard is a direct sequel to that timeline.
Right. I agree.
Picard has
you
nothing
think Picard's
to do.
in the Kelvin universe?
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, especially because of Spock on Next Gen and all his interactions with the Romulans, and that directly led to that was part of the buildup. I shouldn't say directly led to. It's gonna shoot me, but it was a buildup. That was all part of the buildup that led to the whole thing that's in Picard's timeline with the Romulans.
Let me be clear here. I think the J.J. Abrams version of Star Trek is an abomination.
Oh, for God's sake.
But beyond that,
hey, some of the actors did a great job. Beyond that, I'm with you, Pete.
it has nothing to do with.
You just said Picard is a beneficiary of that timeline, so how can it be an
No,
abomination?
no, that's not what I said. I said from Next Gen.
Yeah.
Picard is from the Next Gen timeline, which wouldn't have happened in J.J. Abrams' timeline.
Oh, you said that's the opposite way. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still not able to forgive red matter.
It's a hand wave. It's like, this is what this does. Using red matter,
I still am also not
made
able
a cake.
to forgive the Christ-awful stupidity of the Romulans being there for a couple hundred years and not going back to save their own people.
Yeah, let's take vengeance, but rather than actually fix things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
you can tell Pete he's wrong about anything. It's fine.
Nah, I'm sorry. I'm with Pete on this.
It's just
I like both timelines. Shoot me.
well, okay.
That's
So the problem was it's like the original Star Trek and Next Gen and even DS9 were sort of like this interesting mix of action, philosophy, science that worked really, really well. Action was not always the answer.
Hmm.
Sometimes diplomacy was, sometimes,
mhm.
other things were. But in the J.J. Abrams universe, it's always action.
Speaking of Picard, season 3
Gosh,
is
that scene where, like,
fantastic.
instead of like having an adult discussion about what will be best for the outcome of the mission, and Kirk should then become the tactical commander, he provokes a fist fight on the bridge.
Yes.
How could any of the other officers serve with either of those people ever again?
Well,
With any sort of respect?
is that not the
Mhm.
mirror universe? Is that not what we get?
Well, the original Spock told him to do it.
Okay,
Did
so that was the cool part about Discovery, and I know you just want to jump into like the future part of Discovery, the future, but the mirror universe stuff in Discovery was really cool.
Yeah.
what season is that? I've tried several times to get into season 1.
Well, you know what? I'm
All
sorry,
of them.
just it's like I don't like the way Philippa Georgiou is pretending to be an actor in this timeline.
Who's that?
We all know she's a Star Trek captain and was the Emperor in the evil universe. And
Yes.
there she goes with this false name, perpetuating this falsehood. Like, so we think she's actually an actress when
I have
we
no
know she's
idea what you're
Captain
talking
Georgiou.
about.
And she wins a freaking Oscar.
That's right.
What are
That's
you
a
guys?
good
Because
What
that
are you
is
guys
what
talking
she
about?
would do.
Smoke and mirrors. No one would even suspect that she beams away to like solve galactic problems.
What are you talking about?
So the actress that plays,
Michelle Kwan.
yeah,
No, it's Captain
Spock's
Georgiou
sister?
pretends to be an actress in this timeline.
You talking about Spock's sister?
We're talking about just no.
You're talking about
But
Discovery, though, right?
in Discovery, the mirror universe, there's a character.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All
the
right.
Empress of who is
Yeah,
played
I
by-
remember her from Enterprise. Yeah.
Okay, she's played by an actress who just won an Academy Award, and Matt is making a
Michelle
joke.
Yeoh. Did
What
I
joke?
totally say the wrong name? I'm dumb.
Matt is making a joke that in our timeline she's
Michelle Yeoh.
pretending to be an actress.
Got it.
Yeah, Michelle Yeoh.
Does Spock's here's the real question. Does Spock's sister get any less irritating as
Well,
Discovery
the thing
goes
is,
on?
there's lots of great things about Discovery, and there's lots of super exasperating things at the same time. I've enjoyed all 4 seasons, but I actually think Strange New Worlds is a better show.
Yes.
Yes.
Because, like, just if you went into season 4 of Discovery, we're geeking out here. Sorry, guests.
I mean,
Hey,
we're
she
geeking out
decided
about
to
Star Trek.
she decided to
Okay,
stay.
it's like, so this woman is a general on Earth, and she betrays the Federation as well as Earth to do something very risky, which jeopardizes the whole mission and the whole universe. So instead of being reprimanded, demoted, and removed from duty, they just make her into a hero. And I just, okay, this is like,
Yeah, that's what irritated me.
that
One of
is
the
really
things.
not it's not the Federation way. She broke the rules, and she needs to be called to account, whatever the outcome of the mission.
All right.
It's like they showed this in the very first season of Discovery when
You were in the military,
Spock's
weren't
sister actually had severe consequences for insubordination.
you? Right, I saw that part.
And I thought that was really one of the best parts, is there was consequence to her malfeasance.
Didn't last long.
Well, it did.
Well, it did. Yeah.
And there was still repercussions even
Last
later.
millions of years. I will say that the
This degenerated from a timeline discussion to a Star Trek discussion.
Which is perfect.
Yes.
Oh,
but Michelle
the-
Yeoh, I just want to
Which is
say
fine.
she was credited as Michelle Kwan in earlier films. So really, I wasn't dumb. I just dated myself. I called her that instead of Michelle Yeoh. That is what she is credited as now. Yes.
All right.
Just won an Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But we will forever always love her in our hearts as Philippe Georgiou.
I actually wanted to come back in another series. She was my favorite character.
She was really great.
What?
She was she was an absolute badass, and she actually had like no scruples whatsoever.
Pete, you may speak.
Sorry, I fell asleep.
Sorry, did you get to the part where you're evil?
Yes. So I'm gonna loop
alternate universes.
I'm gonna loop it back for you, Mike. One of the things that I don't like about Discovery, or I didn't like about Discovery because it's a moot point in the later seasons, is the ever evolving and changing Klingons.
Really?
Because Star Trek original Klingons are different from Star Trek Next Gen Klingons, and we had a little bit of joke about that in DS9.
I remember.
And now we're into Discovery, and it's like, what the fuck is this shit? These are not my Klingons. These aren't even my father's Klingons. This is completely different. And I think it was kind of bad writing just to say, oh, we're gonna recreate the Klingons again. Give them
one thing.
The makeup department wanted to have some fun.
One thing that's nice about the new series, Strange New Worlds, is the big baddie is not the Klingons, it's not the Romulans, it's the Gorn.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Really, which is super cool. Yes.
Right. So,
but I do have to say, like with the Klingons, it kind of intrigued me because it seemed almost like, okay, in the original Star Trek, they didn't understand them. They were just at war with them. And there was so much that they didn't know about their culture. And the
other thing is, I was be honest, it was an analog for the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
There was a lot of cool stuff in there too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But there's also that kind of thing of what we're finding out now in these newer series, maybe we're just misunderstood in that earlier series. Not completely, but I think on that part, I find it kind of intriguing. There was the one thing about that I found was cool was just how Christopher Pike found out about his future.
Right, and I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I will say that I personally don't like time travel stories.
Oh my God.
Yeah, shut up.
How can you watch Star Trek if you don't like time travel?
But shelf. I got a whole shelf of time travel books.
And you can keep them.
What is wrong with you? Why are you the way you are?
I learned it from you. I learned it from watching you.
You didn't learn that.
And
you're against time travel, but you're a Star Trek fan. Got it.
Well, okay. So in the original Star Trek, and even in Star Trek Next Gen and DS9, time travel was a tiny, tiny little bit, and it was tolerable.
Right. Now, I don't like it when it's huge. Yeah. No.
But Picard season 2 it's a
I didn't like Picard season 2. I agree with you there. Season 3 is pretty good so far.
And all of J.J. Abrams stuff is based on time travel.
And
Bad time travel. And so
Star Trek 12, The Wrath of Benedict Cumberbatch.
It's going to be the Return of Smog. But anyway.
Okay, so we could just have honestly a conversation about alternate universes and alternate timelines just about Benedict Cumberbatch.
If you think about it. That is true. That is very true.
I have this one where what's the guy he plays Watson?
Oh, Jude Law?
No,
that's in the Robert
in the Sherlock version.
The guy is Martin Short. No, not Martin Short. Yeah.
Yeah, Martin Short. No, not Martin Short.
Not Martin Short.
I can see why you said Martin Short.
Wait, Ian Holm played Bilbo. Who played Bilbo in the Hobbit trilogy?
It is Martin, but
Martin Freeman? No.
Not Morgan Freeman.
I didn't say Morgan Freeman.
You did too.
Anyway, Martin. Martin plays Watson and
Martin Freeman. Martin Freeman.
I said that.
Yes.
All right. So Martin Freeman and Benedict Cumberbatch play.
Oh, guys, it's Martin Freeman. Yeah.
Sorry, there are like a million names shot around. I missed it. Sorry.
You know, Bridget, I think it's Martin Freeman.
Can I?
So the last time
Yes,
I tried to look anything up for y'all of you.
Can I just come to your house now? Do you see the stuff that I put up with? This is why I drink.
Oh no.
You drank before you met me.
Well, not as much.
I'll buy that. I'll buy that for $1.
Anyway, Martin Freeman, Benedict Cumberbatch, Sherlock, and
Watson.
No, Smog and Bilbo.
Yes.
Smog and Bilbo consulting detectives.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right, but not Sherlock Holmes, Nero Wolfe, and Archie Goodwin, where Smog just sits in the mountain with his money, eating whatever's prepared for him, and little Martin Freeman goes out in the world and solves all the crimes.
Yeah, consulting dragon detective.
Yeah, but he brings magic
to leave his mountain.
Yes, he brings magical items to Smog for him to sniff and verify and define. It's like, roll for inspection or whatever, or roll to find out what your magical item is, and then he goes back out. Yes.
All right, you got it. I think it's a great show.
I got
it. Well, for those of you who have fast forwarded through all that,
we need to see Martin Freeman and Doctor Strange. It needs to happen.
That's right. Rick, our friend and co-panelist Rick Lay, is doing better, but it's going to be a slow recovery. He's expected to go home from the hospital Tuesday or Wednesday. Some of us got to Zoom chat with him the last few days.
We are hopeful he's going to come back to us. It's just going to give us a few weeks.
Yeah, we're thinking 5 or 6 weeks. At least his daughter's thinking that. But I was extremely worried. I know a lot of us were. And I think this time last week it was really, according to his daughter, really touch and go. So, but he's improving. And so for those of you out there who are worried about Rick, there's the report. And yeah, he'll be back soon. So, all right, anything else? I mean, I hope you've learned something from this.
She's learned that she's never going to talk to any of us again.
Oh, not her. Yeah. She probably learned that after my second question. Yeah. She's like, screw this.
What did I get myself into? Which is something I ask.
Wait, are you a Star Trek fan?
Me?
Yeah.
I have to admit that I've never watched any of the
Wow, she listened to this whole conversation.
You are better off.
No.
Oh, she's not.
Yes.
Then she doesn't have to watch The Mandalorian or something.
The Mandalorian. Oh, please. Mandalorian's dumb.
Or Andor. I mean, Andor was a great series.
Oh my God.
Farscape was a good series.
Mandalorian.
Well, I will have to say, if you have not watched The Ark, especially for a sci-fi channel series, I've been really impressed with it so far.
What is it?
The Ark. It, is it high whatever? I don't think so, but it is really good, and they show some real things. Like there's a person that got injured, and then she's on the bridge, like in a wheelchair, and like all this like treatment stuff on her. Like she wasn't just all of a sudden I'm better and I'm back in action. Like they show some real tough moments with some people and some tough subject matter, and it's done in a very respectful way. I think it's a good show.
It's a show.
I'll check it out.
It's a good show.
What's it on? Like
Give it a go.
Netflix or something?
It's on the Sci-Fi Channel, but I watch it on Hulu.
Okay. The ARK.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm also
The Ark.
we're halfway through season 2 of Resident Alien with
Oh my
Alan.
God, I love that show.
And
I've been thinking of watching that.
I am laughing my ass off.
I've been
It is
thinking about watching that.
hilarious.
Mhm.
And you know, I knew we were very wary about, because it was a Sci-Fi Channel original too. But the moment I found out that his name was Vanderspiegel, which means son of the mirror, he's a mirror, a reflection of humanity. I thought this is smarter than it's pretending to be.
It is a smart comedy for
It's a
sure.
very smart comedy.
You know what I'm learning right now? Well, I've been pretty sick for a few weeks, as you know. I'm looking at my image here, and I look really old.
You had a haircut.
Yeah, but I mean, I looked even older before the haircut.
I didn't want to say anything, but
yeah, I appreciate that, Pete.
Yeah.
You know what? We're all older than we were yesterday.
That's true. That's true. Then why do you look like you're like 25?
Oh my gosh, you're so kind.
And Pete doesn't look that old.
He's
60.
Gray hairs from people.
All right. So what you don't know is, like, yesterday or the day before, I took off my entire beard, and that got
we
rid of
know that. We can
all
see
the
you.
gray hair. So, but Mike, you've been doing this show for 10 years.
That'll age you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will definitely age you.
Like driving a truck in the sun, the whole one side of your face just sags down.
Dang.
What?
You don't know this?
It's actually, you get more melanoma on your left arm than your right in the US, and it's the opposite in Australia. It's just,
yeah.
What the hell does this have to do with anything?
It has a lot to do with Philippa Georgiou.
Yeah.
She should never go to Australia and drive with her arm out of the window.
I'm still stuck on this image in my mind of like Kristen Dunst chopping her hair off in Interview with the Vampire, and it immediately grows back. That was Pete like shaving yesterday, and then all of a sudden, like the Santa Claus, it came back to when he became a vampire.
You did this, Davis. You did this. Which one of you did this to me?
He's got a year to get his affairs in order, and then he'll become an elder god.
Oh, you don't want me to become an elder god.
He's already an elder.
I'm gonna be the elder god of missing socks in the dryer.
It was you.
That is, like, all
son of a bitch.
See, I've actually heard it hypothesized, Pete, that it's not that they get lost, but in the setting of a washing machine with the soap and the heat and the water agitating, that's when they mate. And so you actually end up with extra socks.
Maybe you do.
Disturbing.
No.
That is just. Look, this is a family show.
First of all, that's disgusting.
That we swear on a lot.
You're saying that socks don't fuck.
I am saying that. I am saying that. Yes. Yeah, I am.
I'm saying, have you ever watched them in the wild?
Socks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
When I said earlier that it's good not to be busy,
dirty,
and that I love a wide margin to my life and everything. It's not so wide that I watch socks mate. So.
But you admit that it happens.
No, I don't. I think what happens is that if they do,
look,
they actually
everyone talks about
goes out of existence.
Are you ready? I live with 3 other people. That's the extra sock bag.
Wow. I wish I had an extra sock bag.
We have an extra sock box.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
But everyone talks about balling up socks or socks balling. It's like
everyone talks about their socks, but nobody does anything about it. I really appreciate you showing us your extra socks, Pete. Yeah. And I think that everyone who's watching this show,
He had to prove he was human after I.
yeah, everyone who is watching this show is now a better person and has grown as a person. These are your socks, right?
Oh yeah. These are the extra socks that appear in.
Look, maybe I'm just a guy, but I have white socks, and that's pretty much it. Aw,
It's a llama sock.
I'll bet you look darling in that.
I don't even know who went out and bought Rice Krispie socks. It's a Rice Krispie sock.
You have too much
We have
funny.
Rice Krispie socks. And why do we only have one of them?
There should be 3: Snap, Crackle, and Pop, right?
But here's a Sour Patch Kid sock. It doesn't match.
I just want to say that this is what sets this show apart from other horror podcasts out there. Things like this, you know.
I don't know if it's a horror podcast or a horrific podcast.
Yes.
Oh, wait. Here. Look. It's an Eggo sock.
I'll be like,
the theme here.
You know,
I don't know what it is.
Here's the link to watch the podcast, but you want to stop after about 45 minutes, and because that's when it deteriorates after they stop talking to me. All right. You know, probably should kill this now.
One last thing. We have a prize. Remember, you can get a copy of The Music of Erich Zahn, and this is really very nice artwork by Nick O'Gorman. Just send an email to easyandprizes@gmail.com and put Zahn in the subject heading. We'll draw a winner in about 6 or 7 weeks, so get your entries in. You got time.
And remember all the cool Patreon things that we've got coming, because I'd really appreciate it if everyone listening would become a patron. You could just do it at $5 a month. And the main reason is I actually need more socks, so then I can afford them.
I'm thinking that I should look. If
don't
you're
send me those.
If you're a fan of the show,
send you his socks.
Just send me your extra socks. Send me your extra.
Be careful what you ask for.
Close. I am
careful
this close.
What you wish for.
I am this close to reading out your address on air.
You know what? I'm going to set up. I'm going to go out and I've been meaning to do it. I'm going to go buy a post office box. And then.
Oh, no.
Go on.
No, Pete. No, don't go there.
Everybody can
you better get a big P.O. box.
So,
remember, if the package is ticking, you might want to have someone else open it. All right, so Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern or anytime afterwards, you can watch our soon-to-be interview with Michael Sisko. It's going to be me, speaking of slowly improving, Laird Barron, John Langan, and Jeffrey Ford. If you guys want to join, you can. I kind of got the feeling you were busy, but it'll be definitely BS4. We're going to talk to Michael Sisko about his new book, Pest, and his weird fiction genre study that no one can afford. And then next Sunday, we've got Ness Brown, who wrote a book. She's an astronomer, I believe, and she wrote a book called The Scourge Between Stars.
Oh. So reminds me of my ex-wife.
Which one?
Which one?
Which universe?
It wasn't Michelle Yao?
Yeah, which time?
See, we're in the universe. We're in the mirror universe. You know how you can tell? Right there. That's right there. The beard. That's how you can tell. So anyway, I thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me again.
Sure. I really enjoyed the book. And I'm really looking forward to I Am I coming out. When is that coming out again?
June 20th.
June 20th. Okay.
Yes.
All
Very
right.
cool.
Is that available for pre-order yet?
Yes, I believe it should be available for Kindle pre-order on Amazon, and then on my publisher's website, you can get the paperback. And if you are amongst the first 50 to pre-order, you get a cute little book plate. Let me see. I actually have it
Is it
here.
a sock?
No, but wait.
Oh, that is
Oh,
cute.
nice.
That is really
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, I like the little robot. Yeah.
Thanks. I self-illustrated it, so
Oh, you did.
That's awesome.
yeah, one of a kind.
Oh, I see it. It's only $3.99. Yeah, pre-order this. I'll have a link to this too. If you have the opportunity to give up humanity for efficiency, mechanical invincibility, and to surpass human limitations, would you? I, as a cyborg, under the guise of an AI writing program, I knew it, who struggles to keep up with the never-blinking city of Emmett as it threatens to leave all those like her behind. Moving, brilliant, and certified 100% human. Moments from now, this book will break, steal, and win your heart. So, by Samit Basu, quote from Samit Basu. Probably saying that name wrong. Author of Turbulence. All right. So anyway, thank you for being here, and thanks everybody for watching and listening. And we will see you next time.